Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Today we are going to talk about the Philadelphia Contribution Ship's experience with Zerto virtual replication and how they were able to achieve their mission critical RPOs and RTOs. Before I move on from the title slide, I'd just like to point out our awards, as we are very proud of them. We did get Best of Show at VMworld last year and the Best of VMworld Gold Award for Business Continuity and Data Protection. And then this last February, we did get Product of the Year Award from Search Server Virtualization. So here's our agenda. You'll see that Mark from the Philadelphia Contribution Ship will do most of the talking, as I know that you want to hear from customers rather than vendors. So he'll introduce his company, talk about why they decided to virtualize, and the current situation in terms of BCDR and the challenges with that, and how those challenges were solved with BCDR from Zerto, and then what made them go with the Zerto solution. And then I'll come in quickly and just go over the company at a glance, go over the architecture, key features and benefits for the enterprise and the cloud, and then how you can learn more. So with us from the Philadelphia Contribution Ship, we have Mark Montagna. He's an IT infrastructure manager with more than 15 years of experience in IT. Specifically, he's been in very heavily regulated industries like the insurance industry and finance industry. He has 10 years of experience with VMware, and his infrastructure has 100 internal users, 400 key agencies with over 2,000 agents. And then my name is Jennifer Gill. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Zerto, and I have 5 years of experience with VMware and virtualization and 15 years of high-tech marketing experience. So at this point, I will turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, my name is Mark Montagna. I work for the Philadelphia Contribution Ship. We are a very unique company located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We are an insurance company that was founded in 1752 by Benjamin Franklin and some other prominent citizens at the time to insure themselves and their neighbors from fire, from losses of their home from fire. Today, 260 years later, I should say, more than 250 years later, we are still headquartered in Philadelphia, and we are the oldest successful property and casualty insurance company in the United States. So it is a unique honor to work for a company that has such rich history. The modern version of our company, as I said, when it was founded, it was to insure from the loss of fire. Today, the modern version, we employ about 100 users internally with 400 agencies networked that have close to 2,000 agents internally, and each one of those 400 agents that rely on us. Homeowners today, as it was 200 years ago, is still our core product, and we still obviously have expanded that service away from just fire, not from just fire, but obviously for other losses to your dwellings. Jennifer, next slide. So the Philadelphia Contribution Ship, again, being as old as they are, we've had an enterprise footprint for many years, and that started to grow to a point where we decided that it was time that we needed to virtualize. Virtualization had gotten to a point where it was hardened and baked in the industry, and we needed to manage our environment like most enterprises do, manage it better and utilize the resources that we had. Cooling costs were a huge issue. Power were a huge issue, but we were able to maximize our available data center space by virtualizing. With virtualization, we had better server manageability and flexibility. We could provision servers quicker. Resource management on the fly, as far as CPU, RAM, and disk, were much easier with virtualization. So the decision to virtualize and to start that process was very easy to make. Today, virtualization affords us better high availability and disaster recovery capability, and the ability to replicate the entire infrastructure, the virtual servers, to remote data centers is much easier today than it was when we were dealing with physical servers. Today, the Contribution Ship is 100% virtualized. Next slide, please. So pre-Zerto, the contribution ship, like most companies, was dealing with the need to maintain operations, high availability, disaster recovery, business continuity. These were all things that we needed to contend with. And pre-Zerto, prior to becoming a Zerto customer, we were employing a multitude of solutions. We were backing up our VMs to tape each night and storing them off-site for that rainy day or that disaster day where we had to recall them. Just very traditional methods. We were using things like DSFR for unstructured data replication to another data center. We were pre-staging VMs at secondary data centers. We were log shipping for databases to other remote locations. Whatever we could do, there wasn't one specific solution in place, but whatever we could do in order to maintain that level of high availability and that ability to recover from disaster and to keep the continuity of the business in place. The plan to rebuild our network environment was simply to take all that information, if it wasn't already at a remote recovery location. If it was on tape, those tapes would be recalled. We'd be rebuilding our environment ultimately from scratch in certain instances. With some of the replicated data, we considered it warm. The data was there for us when we got there, but the application might need to be built around that. It was a very proprietary, very complex process that had very large run books to bring the enterprise back online, and very difficult to maintain, very difficult to continue to update. RPOs and RTOs were non-existent. I mean, from a recovery point objective, it was when it got done. From a recovery time objective, or I should say, from a recovery time objective, it was when it got done. From a recovery point, it was, the last backup we had if it wasn't replicated, if it wasn't that unstructured data replication that we were employing. So a good portion of our environment, we really didn't concentrate on RPOs or RTOs because we really just couldn't afford it. It was just a matter of dealing with trying to get everything back in place after a disaster. And ultimately, it was a very expensive plan to maintain, very costly for all the little pieces that needed to be in place at the recovery location that was separate from our data center, from our remote data centers, in order to bring things back online. It was a very expensive process. Next slide. So the challenges, once we realized that these proprietary methods that we were employing, or I should say these multitude of methods that we were employing, the challenges that we dealt with, our processes, our DR, our high availability methodologies were outdated. They needed to be modernized, and the main issues that we dealt with was it was a DR plan that was based on data replication from tape primarily. We measured our RTOs and RPOs in days, and the recovery process was complex. But as we started to move into looking for alternatives to that, we started to hit snags with the processes that we thought were going to work from us. We were testing traditional array-based and software-based replication applications. They proved to be, for us, unsatisfactory. For our type of environment, we're not a very large environment, and we don't have all the resources available to us as a smaller company that some of the larger enterprises do, like bandwidth or just the resources from a storage perspective. We were finding traditional methodologies just weren't working for us as we were trying to standardize and to modernize. The required increase in bandwidth and WAN optimization and acceleration, they cost significant dollars that when we were talking about just replicating from one site to another, these are the things that kind of came in over and above just traditional replication. We had to deal with bandwidth. We had to deal with WAN optimization just to get it there and to meet the RPOs that we were looking for and the time objectives that we were trying to meet. We still needed to maintain an additional site where if our primary location was unavailable to us, we had to maintain, from a recoverability standpoint, a location where we could go and create that command center. And because of the methodologies we were using, it was very expensive to maintain that. Storage costs were looking to increase significantly due to snapshot replication volumes, as well as having identical target server, or I should say SANs at remote locations, because that traditional array-based solution required that we meet all these particular requirements. And you know, to have 50 terabyte of storage available to us, but X amount of it is consumed by a replication volume or a snapshot volume, or to just have to have that same identical SAN at the other location, it was a significant cost factor. To perform testing was very difficult as well. We have mandatory testing in our industry that we have to perform biannually. So it was very difficult to test and to prove and to rebuild, and it took a very, very long time, and there was many days involved in that testing process. Our desired RPOs and RTOs, we just could not meet with the limitations that were in front of us, the bandwidth and all the other limitations and hurdles that we had to get over. So what we were doing and what we were trying to go to just was not working. We were reaching a certain level of frustration around this particular BCDC DR process. So next slide, please. So, like I said, what we were doing was very complex, very manual, very inflexible, and we really needed a solution that was going to really going to take us into you know, the modern era when it came to being able to bring the company online, whether it was a small disaster or a smoking hole, whatever the case may be. We needed to bring our company to a point where we could meet the company objectives, we could meet the objectives that we had to for our customers to be online and be available for them, and we were not getting there. We were pretty much hitting a wall at that point. Next slide. So we began at that point, we had reached our level of frustration. We stumbled upon Zerto, and when I say stumbled, it was a traditional internet drive-by, as we were trying to find solutions that would be different than what we were already trying. The array-based, the software-based replication, where it was a snapshot-based replication, I should say, where it was a snapshot and ship a delta of that snapshot an hour from now or 2 hours from now, trying to get that across our bandwidth and across our minimal WAN pipe was just increasingly difficult, and these snapshot-based solutions were not doing it for us. We stumbled upon Zerto, and we began a process where we very slowly stepped into the process and were trying to understand at the time what hyper-based replication meant. So we were able to kind of, once we got into the Zerto product and started testing it, we started to see that the snapshot-based replication that we were using was truly in no way a comparison to hypervisor-based replication. So the benefits were tremendous, because all the things that were in our way before, all the things that were challenging us before, just kind of disappeared when we went to Zerto. And again, it was one of those things for us that was just, well, the Zerto product was very new. I had never heard of this type of solution before, and it was kind of a too good to be true kind of thing. So we did step very slowly into Zerto. So next slide, please. So basically, the improvements that we saw with the Zerto implementation, and again, like I said, we did step into this process very slowly. It wasn't just, you know, we committed overnight to it. But what we did see was significantly reduced costs right off the bat. There was no need to increase bandwidth. There was no need to implement WAN acceleration. The offsite recovery location and the contracted standby servers that we had to pay for monthly were incurring significantly monthly recurring costs, and there was no need for that anymore. There was no need for the identical storage solutions at the target data centers that we were replicating to, because Zerto is agnostic of that. It doesn't care about what storage you're putting it on. We no longer had to purchase identical SANs. We had options and choices that we could make. And there was more storage that we could use for data and less for snapshots and replication volumes. So, you know, our SANs were no longer carving out volumes just for snapshot and replication. We could use that for data, and ultimately that was significant, because it saved us quite a bit of money when it came to looking at budgeting for more storage as we went forward. We knew that we were it was more for our information and less for having to just have the overhead of snapshot replication. From a standpoint of our RTO and our RPO, so RPO or RTO was minutes versus days. Again, before I don't even know if days did it justice. It was a matter of when we got it done. From an RPO perspective, it was seconds versus hours. In the past, it was whenever the last snapshot was taken, however long ago. If it was to tape, it might have been 24 hours. It could have been 48 hours ago that we backed up, depending on when our particular scenario had occurred and caused us to go into a DR scenario. But seconds versus hours. Testing with the Zerto product was quick, it was easy, and really completely without risk. Because as we can go through at any point in time during a day or even just a test, we can fail over in a test mode where we can actually stand up that server and we can ensure that it's operational, that it's not corrupt, that it's working. We can manage it. We can do what we want to do with it offline in a simple test mode, and there is no risk. So to bring all of our servers online in a test environment, it's very simple to do. The management is a very centralized, easy user interface. It integrates directly with vSphere, and that is a really nice feature. There's no third-party interface that we have to bring up. We basically, by heading into the vSphere, using the vSphere client, we can bring it up and we can manage. We can see where we're at from a replication standpoint. Are we protecting? Are we synchronizing? What is going on? How much volume are we? What is our RTOs based on current WAN congestion, or basically the complete functionality of the product is right there in front of you. Today, we're through our first year with Zerto, and I guess the first 6 to 8 months of that was really more of a trial for us. We about 1/10 of our network we pushed to Zerto from a replication perspective, and today we're protecting about 4 terabyte of virtualized data. That includes our document management system, our SharePort environments, file servers, large file servers, accounts payable, accounts receivable solutions, billing applications. These are some critical servers that, in the event of a disaster, that would need to be available to us if there were a disaster at our specific headquarters location. And so that surrounding cast of servers that we chose, like I said, that 1/10 of our environment, to walk through it and make sure that Zerto was the product that we wanted. And like I said, currently with about 30 megabit per second WAN links, we're able to protect roughly, with very little overhead, about 4 terabyte of virtualized data today. Next slide, please. So why did we buy Zerto? Ultimately, in the end, we did it to replace the current replication methodologies and the web and the spider web of methodologies we were using before, and we consolidated with Zerto. We were immediately able to minimize capital expenditures on the cost of additional hardware and software that aren't always seen with other replication products when you're trying to implement them. There's the cost of the replication solution you're looking to implement, but you don't always see the WAN acceleration, the additional storage overhead, things that aren't really visible when you're first vetting out a replication solution. We were able to minimize and actually eliminate those expenditures. We were able to minimize operating expenses by not having to increase our monthly recurring costs around bandwidth or offsite DR, DC, or BC availability. That's huge, because again, that is something that we can take that money and put it elsewhere. We bought Zerto because it's very flexible, it's very scalable. There's no additional networking requirements. It's very quick out of the box. It's a very short install. Zerto, their engineers are great. They'll work with you from start to finish, and for us, it was just a great experience all the way around. And the combination of replication and site recoverability, that's another unseen cost that not everybody thinks about when they're implementing a replication solution. So, for example, you get your data from point A to point B, but once you get it there, you have to stand it up. You have to bring it online. You have to, you may have to re-IP it. You may, whatever you need to bring that on and make it accessible again. Just getting it there is not good enough. And so there's SRM solutions with VMware that are costly. That's all built into Zerto, and for us, that was a great feature. That was an incredible feature because, again, it's one-stop shop. Everything is built into the product for us. So from the time that we started about a year ago vetting out the product, we really completed that process back in May of 2012, this year. We ultimately, like I said, we have about 100 servers in our environment spread over multiple data centers, and we about 1/10 of that environment we used Zerto to replicate. And in previous tests, we test, like I said, twice a year. In previous tests, we were talking, it could be 24 hours before we waited for a terabyte of data to be restored from tape, and that could take 10, 15 hours, maybe longer, depending on what else had to happen. But there was a large runbook that had to be laid out for all of these environments to be brought back online. With Zerto, on that test on May the 18th, we were able to basically fail over and recover 10 VMs in 10 minutes. So in terms of expectations, it completely exceeded what I thought we were going to see. And when I say fail over, it was online and ready to go. So questions have been asked to me in the past, like, well, okay, so 10 VMs in 10 minutes, does that mean 500 VMs in 500 minutes? And really, no. Actually, it was 10 VMs in 10 minutes only because we failed over one VM, watched it go, took about a minute, did the next one, failed it over, watched it go. And this is failing over to a test environment. This is failing over into a test mode where it's not affecting my production. My production still continues to replicate while I'm testing this. So it was, if I wanted to fail them all over 10 VMs in 10 minutes, I could fail over all 10 VMs, bang, 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 one right after the other, and have it done in a minute. It's just is by ultimately taking my time that day to test the product to make sure that it worked. It was a phenomenal exceeding of our expectations. So that is really from start to finish the contributionship's experience. And today we're expanding now on Zerto as we step into the new year coming up to expand our footprint with Zerto and ultimately take out all of that overhead when it comes to managing your environment for high availability, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Next slide, please. So ultimately, for me in the contributionship, that is basically sums up our experience to date, and I can tell you that for us, this was the one of the best decisions we ever made. And as myself, as a manager of infrastructure, and have been for quite a long time, this was one of those decisions that was made that it was a game changer for us, and I'm sure it would be for most companies. So,
thanks, Mark. So as I mentioned, Mark, is going to talk the bulk of the presentation, so I'm going to hit on just a couple of key points around Zerto. So first, we really consider ourselves the cloud BCDR platform, and there's a couple of different clouds where we can perform BCD operations and protect them. So the first one is the private cloud, and that's the situation that we had at the Philadelphia contributionship, where you have two sites. They're both under the control of the company, and they're doing BCDR between those two sites. So we call that private cloud BCDR. Then there's also the opportunity to look at disaster recovery as a service because of some of the key features that Mark highlighted, such as being storage agnostic. So we don't care what the hardware is on the production side or the replication side, and that provides an opening or an opportunity for a cloud service provider where they can offer disaster recovery as a service. So the production site remains under the control of the company, and then the replication site would be with a cloud provider. And then lastly, we have something that we call in-cloud BCDR. So this is, there might be that one or two applications that you have that are just a nightmare to manage and maintain, and you would love to get them out of your site altogether. So you can throw over the production and replication over to your cloud service provider, so they would maintain both copies for you. And in the event that their production site went down, they would of course have a replication site to ensure that you always had access to your application. And we call that in-cloud BCDR. So we're able to support public, private, and hybrid clouds using just one product, Zerto Virtual Replication. So if we look at the company, The one thing we focus on, as you probably picked up on, is BCDR solutions for the data center and the cloud. That's the only thing that we do at Zerto. That's our key focus area, because we want to make sure that we deliver enterprise class solutions to ensure that your data and applications are always available to your end users. And if we look at what virtualization changed, replication is really in the wrong place. And what I mean by this is, within a virtualized environment, the hypervisor is really where the action is. Anything that happens outside of the hypervisor has the potential to undermine all the benefits that you've gotten of virtualization. And other companies have realized this, like Cisco with their networking. They have virtual switches now. Zerto realizes that replication in the storage layer also undermines your virtualization strategy, can increase costs and complexity. The exact opposite of what you were promised with a virtualized environment. So we've taken replication out of the hardware layer, moved it up into the hypervisor, so now it's completely virtual aware. So you're able to continue to get those benefits and extend them from your production environment to your BCDR strategy. So the three key areas that we focus on, so it's virtual aware. What I mean by that is we replicate virtual machines, VMDKs. We're not concerned with LUNs. It's a software-only solution, so it's highly scalable. Yet, with this flexibility that you get with our product, it's enterprise class. So you have very low RPOs and RTOs. You're able to protect applications through a virtual protection group, which I'll discuss in just 1 minute. And then you also have continuous data protection. So you have like a TiVo for your environment to ensure that you can replicate to a prior point in time, for example, if you had a logical corruption or something like that. So here we're going to look at a simple architecture. I say simple because we have 2 sites, and Zerto is able to protect multiple sites. And there are 2 components of the software. First is the Zerto Virtual Manager. This is the only piece of the software that you'll touch. It manages the environment. It also installs and pushes out your Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance. The Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance is a virtual appliance. This is not another piece of hardware. As I mentioned, it's a software-only solution. And one is installed per ESX host. And this is what captures the I/O from each VM and sends it over to your replication site. And this is continuous block level replication. That's what enables us to deliver the very low RPOs. So we kind of touched on this already, but you can replicate from anything to anything. You can see on the slide here we have NetApp, IBM, EMC, Dell, HP. So if you wanted to use an older array or a lower cost storage on your replication site, certainly possible. We talked about it being software only because it is in the hypervisor, making it highly scalable. A critical feature for an enterprise environment or mission critical environment, because those mission critical applications tend to grow, not shrink. So we want to make sure that we're able to protect the environment as it grows. It's near synchronous continuous replication. Again, that delivers that very low RPO. And there's no application performance impact. So we've actually done benchmark testing on the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance to see what the impact is on the VM. It's 2 to 5%. Very, very low impact. So it's designed to run with your mission critical applications. The journal provides the point-in-time recovery. So for example, this can be 1 hour, up to 5 days worth of data. If there were to be a logical corruption in the environment, you can fail over to a point prior to that logical corruption. With other replication solutions, you basically have the last point in time, and if that last point in time happens to be corrupted, that can cause a problem in terms of the recovery. Because this is continuously replicated, 5 minutes ago was corrupted, you just fail over to a point 5 minutes ago in 15 seconds. And we also do some compression and WAN optimization to ensure that we're not dominating the network and to keep your network requirements low. So I hit on this a little bit in terms of application protection. So we know at Zerto that you want to protect the data, of course, that is very important. But ultimately you want to protect the application because that's what your end users are hitting that's what they need access to be able to do their jobs. So with Zerto, we've created something called a virtual protection group. So what you can do is locate the VMs that are supporting a particular application. You might have a web server, an application server, and a database server. You can put those together in one group and ensure that that your BCDR policies are applied consistently to that group. Again, that's independent of what storage array that they're on and what type of server. This also enables you to unleash the power of virtualization. What do I mean by that? So with other array-based solutions, you kind of have to lock down the environment and you can't make any changes. With hypervisor-based replication, because it's aware of the activities of the hypervisor, you can keep those cool features that VMware has on, like vMotion, storage vMotion, HA. And we also have VSS support. So if you wanted to line up those points as well, and we support the Oracle hot backups. With every step, we also include automation. This is very important because any manual step is an opportunity for an error. So with Zerto, we completely automate the information going over to your application site, but then when you do have to fail over, they'll automatically build the virtual machines on the replication site. We don't have shadow VMs, and this automation is what enables us to deliver that RTO of minutes. This includes boot order. So for example, in that virtual protection group, you might want to have your database server boot up first, then your application server and web server. It'll automatically reconfigure IP addresses if needed, test networks, etc. Again, everything is automated. You can click to test anytime. So as Mark mentioned, you might have a test network, so you can build the VMs within your test bed and make sure that it is going to perform in the way that you need it to. You can also do this testing at any time, and as Mark mentioned, your production environment will still be protected. It'll still be replicating. If by some off chance during your test, your production site fails, you can suspend the test immediately and do your actual production failover. We have offsite cloning, so you're able to create a copy of your application and data on your application site for a backup, maybe for test and development, any other needs that you might have. So it's kind of a neat feature that, one, it's already on your application site, and you have access to that to perform any kind of testing you might need. So we did talk about multiple sites. So, here was our traditional solution. With Zerto Virtual Replication 1.0, we enabled replication between 2 sites. With Zerto Virtual Replication 2.0, we are able to support multiple sites. And with secure multi-tenancy, you can use one shared infrastructure for your target site. So if you're a very large company, you have everyone failing over to data center A, for example, you can leverage one infrastructure and ensure that each department is information is segregated, even though it's within the same environment. Very useful, as you can imagine, for a cloud service provider, as they might want to make sure that Coke and Pepsi's environments are completely segregated. So here we can see that Zerto is just a plugin within VMware vCenter, as Mark mentioned. So we don't want to create another application for you to open for management. Everything stays simple and centralized. So that's really what we had today in terms of Zerto virtual replication. So we really think it's a new approach to disaster recovery, purpose-built for the enterprise class, very low RPOs and RTOs, truly virtual aware, very, very simple, scalable, and ready for the cloud, whether you have a private, public, or hybrid cloud. And then to learn more, you can certainly go to our website. We have a lot of information there, and we would love for you to do that. Thank you very much.